Yeah, I think it's also important to note that, once again, Donald Trump has got those figures of the amount of aid given to Ukraine completely incorrect. Europe technically is actually given about 20 billion more than the Americans at the moment, because there's still an amount of US aid which still hasn't been drawn down, and it's also about half the amount that Donald Trump said that the US has pledged. So something just to clear up. It's important to make sure that facts are facts. Well, we know now that Donald Trump has been talking again about the US and Ukraine and the importance of that mineral deal. Donald Trump says he thinks that mineral deal is very close. He says we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get. But AFP is citing a Ukrainian source saying that Zelensky is actually not there all the way yet with this mineral deal. The Ukrainians understand how important this mineral deal is to ensure that the US is still involved and interested in Ukraine, and that the US has a vested interest in the country's future. But he is still waiting for some assurances. So the negotiation on that deal is still ongoing. The Americans say that this deal is the way to do that, to ensure that the US is interested. It's meant to be worth about $500 billion, so a significant amount of money that the US could indeed be getting into here if Zelensky does indeed approve this deal. And it's also important to note that while Donald Trump says both sides, the Ukrainians and the Russians, are looking for peace, that we are still seeing this war ongoing. We are still seeing drones hitting targets in Ukraine. And just in the last couple of hours, Vladimir Putin has said that boosting Russia's armed forces and meeting the needs of troops fighting in Ukraine are his two key strategic priorities. So they may be trying to get some kind of peace deal over the line, but it's definitely not there yet.
And this also comes as there's been a lot of disparity over Washington's handling of the Ukraine crisis and Europe's. Of course, there's been a disparity, as we say, in the UN Security Council evening, with two opposing draft resolutions today. There are also a host of European leaders who are going to be descending on Washington, bringing a message from Europe to Donald Trump. And so there's quite a lot of discrepancy, as we say. What do we expect in the coming week, especially from the likes of Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, and we've also heard from Poland's leader today?
Yeah, the Europeans are really trying to ensure that the Europeans get on the same page as the Americans. I think there's a sense that they're trying to basically tone some of the rhetoric down to make sure that it doesn't completely get out of their grasp, out of their control. And they're trying to appeal to Donald Trump. We've seen that now with a flurry of European leaders heading to Washington. The Polish Prime Minister Duda was here speaking to Donald Trump on the sidelines of the CPAC meeting over the weekend on Saturday. Macron is coming on Monday. He's said in the past Trump mustn't be weak when dealing with Putin. The French are really trying to rally European support here. Of course, we've seen those confluences of European leaders in Paris over the course of the last week. And sources that I've spoken to have said that Trump's rhetoric isn't a surprise, but it has been a wake-up call for Europe. They've expressed Europe's support for the US peace through strength approach, but also want to highlight the importance of the Ukraine issue for the Europeans. Sources tell me that Macron is hoping to use his unique relationship with Trump to get the point across how important the Ukraine situation is for the Europeans, and is therefore by extension America's biggest allies. And they're going to be discussing the need for increased and coordinated defense spending among European countries as well. Sources say it doesn't do any good to be worried, and that they actually just have to act and show how responsible they are for what's happening on the continent. So something to watch there. And also later in the week, we're going to be seeing Keir Starmer from the UK heading here. He's been a bit quiet on the international stage really in the last few weeks, but he just released an op-ed in a British newspaper saying it's in the UK and US interest to stand by Ukraine with security guarantees. President Trump is also right to grasp the nettle and see if a good peace deal is on the table. He also added that every time he's spoken to Donald Trump, he said, quote, "I am struck by his commitment to peace." Now, that could be taken as Keir Starmer trying to butter Donald Trump up a little bit ahead of this meeting. We know the two men, they don't have a very warm, friendly relationship. Donald Trump has said that he's a nice guy, but sources that I've spoken to in both camps say that that he's not as close to Starmer as he is to some other world leaders. But Keir Starmer, of course, is also worried about the tariffs that could be heading the UK's way, especially because of VAT. So he's trying to walk a thin line here between ensuring that the Europeans get the security that they need for Ukraine, but also ensuring that he gets a good deal for his country when it comes to trade as well.